Joining us. My name is Leslie Cigarette, and I am currently
Leslie, you'll want to stand up at front too, if you can, so that people can see you online.
how does this different?
I can maneuver that for you.
Okay.
Until
Right here. Welcome. Sorry. My name is Leslie Cigarette. I'm currently a mentor coach with North State ECERS. I also work for Shasta County Office of Ed. I just thought it would really be important to kind of do introductions, kind of tell me where you were, tell me what your experience is with the tool, just so that I can kind of get an idea of where to kind of start. To kind of give you mine. My experience with ECERS was I was a preschool teacher for 16 years, and then I transferred over to working with QRIS. Now I work as a mentor coach. And I knew the ECERS tool as a teacher. I knew the little rating scale, but then I also got to know the wonderful All About ECERS book that kind of gives us a lot of info. So my role today is to kind of give you a more detailed look at the tool and kind of hopefully you'll leave today with a better understanding of ECERS, a better understanding of materials to put in your centers, a better understanding of language to have with the children. So if you could just give me a little bit of info about yourself.
Leslie, let me turn towards the camera too. Sorry.
Where am I looking at?
So yes, so the camera can see you right here. It's always a challenge, technology, trying to get you in the right position there. So thank you. Sorry. Okay, proceed.
I'm Linda Sellers, and I am the supervisor for early education and instruction. I've been in this field for more than 30 years. I've been a site director. I've been a director. I've been in private. I have my own home daycare. I am very familiar with ECERS. I used to help teachers get ready before their monitor, but I think it's always good to kind of refresh.
I'm Lori with the SCOE, and I just got back into the field. I took a little bit of a break after I got my bachelor's with the program, and I also had my own preschool and child care, and I've worked for Head Start and I'm with SCOE since I've gotten back, and I'm too familiar with ECERS, but learning, trying to get caught up with where we're at today. Thank you.
I just went to preschool in Shasta. And yes, I'm familiar with ECERS, but we're doing it together, and so I kind of come here so that we can work as a team and get the same information.
Thanks. Nice to meet you.
I'm Bernadette. I'm new to ECERS, so this is all new to me. And learn more about it.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Rachel Siders. I work in the preschool, and I've been here, and I'm just looking for
Hopefully I'll walk out with a little more knowledge.
I'm Vanessa Barons, and I work at Colonial Preschool, and I've been doing this for 16 years. And I'm new to this video.
I am Sheila Torrance, and I'm at Columbia also. I've been running preschool off and on for 25 years, and we're virgins to this program. So.
Well, welcome, welcome.
My name is Alice Lopez, and I also work at Columbia.
Welcome.
I'm Suzanne Miller. I've been in preschool at Columbia for 14 years now. Learned about ECERS about 3 years ago when I went back to my second director.
Do I know?
Yes,
I have your son.
Yeah, that's
Bye bye.
Yes, that's why.
What's hiding?
It's me.
She's another mentor. She's doing the later seminars about bitters and peppers. So.
I'm William Brown. I have a degree in ECE. I'm currently enrolled in an online course that includes ECERS.
Well, welcome.
Cheyenne Sidler. I'm the new program director for Early Foundations Children's Academy. This is my first time with ECERS, of course.
Well, welcome.
I'm Julia Herzog. I am the new West Mentor coach
And those are all my teachers.
And let's see, my experience with ECERS. So I was in the field for 10 years as a teacher director at nonprofit preschool. And out of those 10 years, I was a mentor teacher with Shasta College for 5 years. So I had some knowledge of ECERS, but I didn't more. So just
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, nice to meet everybody. So welcome. And I promise this is going to be a very exciting time for you, because as you're in the classroom, working with your environments, this is just going to kind of give you a little introduction to different things you can do in your classroom with your environment. So, computer stuff I'm not really good about.
Remind me tomorrow. That works.
So you have a nice, beautiful presentation of the slides. That's yours. Feel free to take notes on it. Write anything that I'm writing. I also included, these are some little ECERS cards that you can take and use in your classrooms or in your wherever, just to kind of give you a little cheat sheet. And then I also included my card out there. If you should go back and you have questions, or you're not sure, something was a little confusing, please feel free to email me, reach out to me, or reach out to your mentor, because they too are also certified in the tool, and they can kind of help you as you're going through it. So what is ECERS? ECERS is designed to assess programs with children that are 2 years old to 5 years old. It's a scale that consists of 43 elements. You probably looked at your book. You probably see all the different areas that it covers. Today, we're going to go over many of those areas. The scales are designed to kind of assess the quality of your program. And then the process of quality consists of various interactions that go on in the classroom between the children, the staff, the parents, and just kind of measure those interactions and kind of see how everything's working together.
Real quick, Leslie,
Yes.
for everyone online, I see that there's some text, there's some chats in the chat box that they can't see the slides. And as I said previously in the beginning of the training, the slides were sent to you beforehand if you're joining virtually. So you will need to open and access those slides during this presentation as Leslie goes through. Hopefully you have a view of the screen a little bit, and Leslie, so you can gauge where you're at in the presentation. I do realize it's backwards in your view, so please access your online materials. That's all.
Okay. So children thrive when their health and safety are met. We're providing a safe, healthy environment for children. So that's part of ECERS. They also look at that piece of it. You might hear hand wash, sanitations, the procedures are very grueling, but that's part of providing that health and safety piece to it all. Children develop good feelings about themselves and strong social skills from adults who are nurturing and provide positive methods of guidance. Being teachers who are role models. Kids love us. They want to come to our classrooms. We want to provide that safe environment. And this is kind of what that tool is kind of looking at. Not only the health and safety piece, but it's also that we're also providing a nurturing environment for children to begin. And that meaningful learning occurs when there is plenty of time to choose many activities with a teacher who brings learning out of play. So we want to provide lots of things for kids to do. Kids are interested. We want to change our materials when we're noticing children are starting to get bored. We're changing and rotating those materials. That's part of ECERS, and how the teacher uses the materials to kind of help children learn. So the areas of ECERS include all these wonderful areas. Space and furnishings, that's like the structure of your building, the furniture you have in your classrooms, your shelves, your cots, your chairs, your outside space, your playground equipment. That's all contained in space and furnishings. Personal care routines. This is where we look at hand washing, sanitation, we look at napping, we look at meals. So there's a whole section about that. And then language and reasoning, it's how you're talking to the children, your conversations, your language, your interactions with the children, which are so important to this tool because there's quite a few elements that kind of go over that. Your activities, which are your centers, your math center, science, art, all your centers and all the activities within those centers. Your interactions, how the children are playing together, how staff's playing with the children, your schedule, program structures, your schedule, sorry. Looks at your schedule there. And then there's also a component for parents and staff where it asks, what do you do with your staff? Do you have staff meetings? Do you provide breaks for your staff? How are their evaluations conducted? So all those things combined into one tool, and that's ECERS. So there are many things out of your control. Has anybody had an official ECERS ever done in their classroom or been at a site where they've had an ECERS done? One of the things that is out of your control as a teacher, as a director, is the building. That's kind of where our classrooms are. It's out of your control. One of the other things that's big is your playground, because sometimes we're on elementary school campuses where we're using their playground equipment. We have no say into what our barrier looks like, the fence around the playground. We have no say in the equipment that's really out there. So those are really things that are out of your control. You can't really control that. The things that you can control are the things that are in the environment, like the manipulatives that you put out. So I'm going to go over some common words that we talk about. Substantial portion of the day. Substantial portion of the day is a very important thing when you're creating your schedule, because that is the amount of time that you have things available to children. When I come in and I do a rating in a classroom, the first thing I do is I look at the schedule, and then I determine how much free play they have. Free play is when centers are open, children have access to all their toys. If I'm in a classroom and I'm doing an assessment and I hear the teacher say, okay, now we're doing free play, but the dramatic play area is closed today because yesterday we forgot to close it up, that's going to raise a red flag for me, because that's going to say, uh-oh, they're not going to be able to have substantial portion of the day in the dramatic play area. Does anybody have any questions? Because I know it can get kind of a little confusing around that. And Heidi, if I say something, feel free to jump in. So substantial portion of the day is really important. And as you're going through this process and you're learning about the tool and you're learning about substantial portion of the day, feel free to reach out to your mentor, your teachers, and we can talk about that with you. But there's kind of a chart that we follow, and it's calculating substantial portion of the day. So one of the things you want to do is you want to look at the total amount of hours that your center is open. And then if you go over to the side, you'll see a 3-hour program has a substantial portion of the day of 1 hour. So 1 hour, technically, anything in the classroom should be opened. Children have accessibility to it. So if you're a 5-hour program, how much substantial portion of the day should you have? An hour and 40 minutes. So that means everything would be open for an hour and 40 minutes. And on your schedule, you could just put from 8 to 9, free choice. 10 to 11, centers. But the minute that you put on your schedule, 11 to 12, science and art. That's telling me, uh-oh, only thing that's available that time is science and art.
It just has
Yes.
to add up to that hour and 40 minutes though, right?
What's
Just the free choice just has to add up to that hour
Right.
and 40 minutes. There are times you can close things, right?
Exactly.
As long as it's meeting that hour and 40 minutes. Okay.
And you can have it from 8 to 8:30. You can have free choice from 11 to 11:45. You could have another free choice. When you start adding things outside, like you start adding books, you start adding art stuff, you start adding manipulatives, puzzles, those pieces also get added into your substantial portion of the day.
That's what I was gonna ask, that includes outside time too, right?
Yes, yes.
So outside time doesn't isn't included unless
It
you
is.
have all that
It
stuff
is.
available, right?
If you have that stuff available outside, like if you have a dramatic play area inside, and let's say you have housekeeping, but then outside maybe you have a car wash and you have rags and buckets and sponges, and you have a hose for them to use. That's another dramatic play area outside, and you would get time for that. If you had a quiet book area out in the grass area for children to look at books, that's also considered a book area. If you take art stuff outside, like an easel with some watercolors, if you take Play-Doh outside or clay, sidewalk chalk, yeah. Those are also considered art things, which could add up into your substantial portion of the day. But kind of think about, what is the purpose of this activity? You know, and am I providing enough materials to meet that? And we'll go through that because I have a section where we're going to go through materials in the classroom. Okay, so I wanted to just really kind of go over ratings because some of you have the tool, and you might realize that it's a tool where you get assessed. It's a tool where you get a rating. So anything between a 1 and a 2 is considered inadequate. It's kind of looking at your things and how can we get a better score. Sometimes your environment is going to give you a 1 or a 2. The structure of your building, your playground, there's nothing you can do about that. And those are things where really it's kind of like we just have to let that go and move on to something else because it's really out of your control. A 2 and a 4 is minimal. It's kind of thinking, okay, I have a science area, but I don't really have anything in it. So it's kind of thinking about what do I need to add to it to get a better score. A 5 and a 6 is good. That's great. That's where we want you to be. We want you to average a 5 in those areas. It might mean we just need to add some more material. Maybe we need to have some conversation. Maybe we need to do a little bit more interaction with the children. And then a 7 is excellent. A 7 is way over and beyond. You have achieved the top level of this tool. So there's different activity centers. And as we go through the activity centers, I kind of listed materials. I've listed the categories for you. But in your activity areas, there's fine motor, there's art, there's music and movement blocks, sand play, dramatic play, nature science, math, use of TV, video, and computer, and then promoting acceptance of diversity. So those are all your centers within the classroom. So for fine motor, if I was an assessor coming in, I'm looking at your areas and I'm looking for all your fine motor things. So fine motor means that the materials need to be accessible for a substantial portion of the day. So this is one of those areas that if you do not meet substantial portion of the day, you're not going to get higher than a 4. So part of my goal today is to kind of give you a 5 and above. So all this stuff that I'm giving you is going to hopefully get you to a 5 or above. Materials are organized. So your fine motor is going to be like your puzzles, your manipulatives, your art, and your small building materials. So when I'm coming in, I'm just looking for those areas around your classroom. You don't have to have a fine motor station. Fine motor can kind of be anywhere within your environment. And we're looking for different levels of difficulty. So we're wanting to see puzzles that maybe have knobs on them. We're wanting to see small building materials of different styles and structures so children can build. Materials are rotated. That's one of the questions that we asked. How often do you rotate your materials? Do you do it every 2 weeks? Do you do it monthly? Rotating your materials. Containers and accessible storage shelf that have labels to encourage self-help. So we're looking to see, are there pictures on the containers? Are there pictures on the shelves for children to be able to put things away? And that 4 of 4 categories are represented. And that just means that there's 4 categories in fine motor, and all 4 categories have the appropriate amount of materials in them. So one of the first categories is your small building toys. These are those things that you can stack, like Lincoln logs and building blocks and small cubes, inch cubes, bristle blocks, tinker toys, and magnets. And then I have some examples over here. I have to tell you, this was the first time I've ever done a PowerPoint, and I had so much fun finding pictures for these things. I'm like, yay, I found something. But all these toys, and in your All About ECERS book, your big book, they have lots more examples. And use your mind. And when you're using these, those are not the only things. Anything that they can build, that's a small building toy. Fine motor. So this is your art material. So I'm just going over to your art area and I'm looking for 3 to 5 examples. So all I need is 3 things. I need to find crayons, or pencils, paints, paper, collage material, Play-Doh, or clay. So I'm just looking for 3 things. So if you have paper, crayons, and markers, oh, I found 3 things. So you get that category. So also in fine motor, there's manipulatives. So manipulatives, things that they're doing with their hands, lacing beads and cards, lacing beads and string, lacing cards, pegs and boards, things that zip, snap, and button, gears, nuts and bolts, toys like Mr. Potato Heads, train tracks. Those are all your manipulatives. I'm just going around the classroom and I'm looking for 3 different things. Once I have 3, oh, got it. And then puzzles. So there needs to be 3 kinds of puzzles. So different kinds of puzzles, anything with a knob. That's that difficulty, range of difficulty. A jigsaw puzzle. Anything in a frame. Anything without a frame, like a floor puzzle. So I just need 3 different kinds of puzzles. Once I find those, oh, they've got all 4 categories. They've met fine motor. They did it. So now we're moving on to the next one. How's this pace? Is it too fast? You feel good? Mm-hmm. Is it confusing? No. I'm just trying to get a gauge.
I really like that you gave the example about the crayons and markers, and that all counts for different things. I didn't know that. So that's a really good way to get all your materials.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And like I said, your All About book, that is like it. If you have questions, go to your book. Because your book has all your answers, or it's going to kind of guide you to something. And what's great about your book is it's going to go 1.1, and it's going to give you a scenario something. And then it's going to go to the next area, 3.5, and it's going to give you another example. So use that book, get to know it. It's going to be your new best friend as you're using ECERS in your classroom. So the next category, a whole different category other than fine motor, is art. So this is a little bit different than the art that we're going to find in fine motor. It's a little more in depth. So again, materials need to be available for a substantial portion of the day. What happens if you don't meet substantial portion of the day? You get marked down.
All over the place.
You get marked down. All your activity areas are going to be a 4 or below. Yes.
I have a question. In each one of these areas, they don't actually have, do they actually have to be in that area? Can they be in another center in the classroom?
So there's one area, math. And as we go through it, when you get into math, I'll kind of talk about that. But like I said, fine motor can be everywhere. Art, we have an art area. Our art stuff stays in our art area. Science stays in science.
Like our Play-Doh, we don't really put that with our art. We just pull it out as soon as we get done with our first group. But it's over. Actually, it's not anymore. Moved it to a different table. Would that still count, even though it's not right next to the art?
I would probably put it closer to the art area because it is like an art label. It's like a 3D material. So here, when we look at art, we're looking at art is varied and individual. So we want children to paint. We want them to create things on their own using their own imagination. When we have things cut out for them to make like a butterfly and the head has to go here and the antennas have to go here and the wings have to go here, that's really not an individual. That's a product. We're making a product. We want them to go through the process. We want them to create things by themselves. So that's one of the things that we really look for in this area, is just for them to have freedom to create their own art. 3-dimensional materials that are available, at least monthly. And I'll talk about that as we go through some of these slides. And that the art relates to the classroom theme. If I'm coming into your classroom to do an assessment and I come in and I see snowflakes and I see trees with ornaments on them and the theme is butterflies and rainbows, that's kind of telling me, uh-oh, what's our theme? What's our general theme in the classroom this month? Or if you don't follow themes, you're just following the flow of what's happening so that there's something happening within the room. And that in art, there's 5 categories. In order to get credit, you just need 4 of those categories with materials in them. And I'm gonna go over those right now. So we're looking for drawing materials. So when I go to your art area, I'm looking for 3 to 5 drawing materials, and those can be crayons, markers, pencils, colored pencils, chalk, paper, chalkboards, and dry erase markers. I just need 3 things. 3 of those things in your art area, and you've met drawing. I need paint materials. So I need 3 to 5 different kinds of paint materials. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. Tempera paint, watercolors, finger paint, glitter paint, paint brushes, and paper. Those are the things that I'm looking for. If you have an easel, and on one side you have tempera paint, on the other side you have glitter paint, and then on your art shelf you have watercolors. That's 3 kinds of paint. Sometimes the little tablets, those count too. So you get to be creative in what kind of paint material you use, but there has to be 3 kinds of examples to get credit for paint. So in this slide, I walk into a classroom and I go to the art area. What else can I add besides watercolors? So I'm looking for 3 kinds of paint, and all I find is watercolors. What other kind of paint can I add?
Tempera paint.
Tempera paint. Yep.
Glitter paint?
Glitter paint.
We're just repeating it.
Yeah.
Finger paint.
Finger paint.
Yeah.
Then once you have those 3, you just need 3. You've met that category. So 3-dimensional art material. So this is another category that I would need to find in your art area. A basket with pipe, or you might have Play-Doh and clay. Those are 3D materials because children can build up, they can build out, so they can create height, they can create depth, and then they can create width. And then you might have other things like little toilet paper rolls or paper towel rolls or tissue boxes and glue. So children can freely go over to the art area, and if they want to create a 3D structure, they have the materials there. They can build it themselves however they want. So collage materials, this is another category. So when I'm going over to the art, I'm also looking for collage. So I'm looking for any of these 3 things: glue, different kinds of paper, maybe scraps, or maybe if the teacher made hearts and put them in the collage basket, children can use those. Magazine pictures, yarn and string, cotton balls, pom-poms, sequins, gems, feathers, and buttons. So any of those 3 materials that children can go over and use. And however you display them, however you put them, like here, there's some nice containers that people have separated those collage materials and kind of have that in the art area so children can pick those up and put them on the table and use them as they want. That's great.
Can we go back to the 3-dimensional materials?
Sure.
Is it, it doesn't have to be individual. Can it be like a class project that is a 3D?
Yes.
It can be.
Yes.
And you get the
You
points
do
for
get
that.
credit.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
She's good. She's ahead of me. Yes, but we'll talk about that in a couple slides after this. And we'll look at some 3D models, because you could have the materials for them to be able to use to make those, but you also want to have a 3D model out on display in the classroom. And that could be something that you do monthly. Maybe you get wood pieces this month. And this month you invite children to come over and create a 3D wood structure. So they add, they build, they glue, and they do whatever. And then you invite children to come over the next day and paint. So maybe they paint it. And then the next day, maybe they come over and they start adding things with glue, like pom-poms, sequins, other things. And then you put that out on display for a month. As an assessor, that's one of the things I look for. Do they have 3D display out in their classroom?
And you can also ask them to tell you what is it that they created and you write down their words somewhere
Right.
around there.
Lots of creative things you can do.
Yeah.
What happens, this is kind of a crazy question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. What if the teacher normally does that and you guys come out unannounced? And you're looking for this activity and it's not there, but I mean, as a general rule, they're doing things like that.
You ask. There's
You can
questions we can ask.
Oh, okay.
So if we're not seeing something, we might ask the question, tell me about 3D art. How often do you do it? Or if I'm noticing there's something on like oh gosh. Something from maybe like 3 months ago. I might ask them, so tell me what kind of 3D art stuff that you do. How often do you do it? You know, oh, we do it monthly.
Then we would never come unannounced though. ECERS is always scheduled.
Yeah.
So does that hold true for like?
We would never come unannounced. If you were getting an assessment done, we schedule that with you. So you would know we're coming at 8 o'clock. We're going to be there until 11. We're going to meet at 11:30 to ask you questions, because there is a part of it, if you ever are having a assessment done, where the person that's doing it can ask you questions if they don't see anything. And in your rating scale, the one with the spiral bound, that has questions that an assessor can ask you. So those are additional things.
I just had when you say we know you would never show up unannounced, but what about the difference in agency policy? Are there some, like maybe Head Start, where they do come unannounced? Do you know? I don't know if you know the answer to that question, or
No.
so it will always be scheduled.
It's always scheduled.
Okay.
With us, it is. With North State QRS, we're always scheduled. So nobody would ever show unannounced. And even if you're working with your mentor, and your mentors, maybe you might have heard of a baseline, maybe a soft ECERS, where they're coming and they're just using it as a tool for you to kind of work on your environment, you would probably know that they're coming for that too. Yes.
Is there much difference between the revised edition and the third edition?
Yes, there is. We use the revised edition for California, and we're sticking with this one. The other one, I'm not 100% familiar with it, and I think Heidi probably knows a little bit more about that.
The third edition is more about why you're putting the materials on the shelf. So when you put something for math on the shelf, you know why you're putting it there and what kind of interactions you're going to have with the children as you're working with them in that material. So it's more about the language and the interaction piece than it is about how many of each material are on the shelf.
Okay.
Which I vote for that, but we're not going with that one right now. So, but I think it's really important, even though we're not using that tool, to still understand, why am I putting this on the shelf and how am I going to interact with that child and get them to understand or develop their level of skill at a higher level.
Thank you.
So collage materials, so tools. You just need 3 examples of different tools, and this is just a variety. Remember, this isn't the only list. You may have different things, as long as it's a tool that they can use. Some examples are safe scissors, a stapler, hole punchers, tape, tools for Play-Doh, like their Play-Doh toys that they use. Those are considered tools. So if you have your Play-Doh in your art center, you can have your Play-Doh tools there too. That counts in 2 categories. Stencils, sponge painters, rollers, brushes of various sizes, because remember, if we're having paint, watercolors, we also need to provide the brushes. And ink daubers. There's lots more. So how many of these things am I looking for if I'm looking in your tool section of your art area? 3 to 5. And if you want to do 5, go for it.
Or more.
Or more. Because you know kids, they love art. probably one of the very popular areas. And those are just some examples of different things. So here I'm looking at tools. So I'm looking at tools, and the only thing that I'm finding in tools is a stapler, paint, and tape. What's wrong with this picture? You need something else. You need another. What is a stapler and tape? What category would that be considered? Tools. Tools. Yes, tools. So paint probably doesn't fit there. Yeah, you would need something else. You need something else like hole puncher. Oh, hole punchers. Paintbrushes. You need something else. Tweezers. Yeah, all kinds of fun stuff. So music and movement is a lot of fun. We love music and movement. So one thing that we're looking for, and this is a question we can ask because we're there for 3 hours. Maybe we don't see any music or movement. We can ask that question. Tell me, do you do music and movement? Yes, we do it every day. Or I might go look at your schedule, your lesson plan, to kind of see when do they sing songs? When do they do large movement? To kind of help me understand, do they do these things in your classroom? So we want to have music materials accessible for children to use. That means that we want to have musical instruments for them to play with. Music can also be outside. So if we have small rooms and we need it quiet sometimes, we can take the musical instruments outside. Or let's say we have an outside schoolhouse day. Take it outside and let them have fun outside with them. Have their streamers, their scarves to dance, have music outside. Yes, isn't it?
Have to be available for the whole hour, 40 minutes, or 5 hours.
This one we're looking just that it's accessible. So we just want children to have accessibility to it for a specific amount of time to your program. So if you're an 8-hour program, it has to be available for at least an hour. 8-hour or above, at least an hour. If you're a program 4 hours or less, it's at least 30 minutes. So we want to have a CD player that's accessible for children to use. That means a CD player down at their level so that they can turn it on and off and play their music. That's a hard one. And I know but we break our CD players, but they're rough with them. But it's new, and I don't want it to be broken. Part of this tool is they have access to it. If you have a listening center, you can put your music there. Put some nice music there for them to listen to there. If you create a structure with the children where they can come to you and say, Miss Lori, I want to hear that If You're Happy and You Know It, Clap Your Hands song. And Lori goes over and she puts it on for them. They still have accessibility to it. So you just have to kind of figure out what's going to work best for your program and create that structure for them to be able to have access to it. Yes.
The thing that we have, maybe if it's maybe, we actually have wireless headsets, and they know how to turn them on and adjust the volume, but they don't actually get to play with the CD player. But we always have different ones on, but they know how to pick up the.
Yeah,
they do that
perfect.
part all by themselves.
So you've created a structure for them where they can play music on their own by themselves.
That's what we have the wireless, but they come to us and we help them.
Perfect.
You know.
Yeah. Perfect.
And then they have.
Yeah. There you go. So there's lots of ways. There's lots of ways to do it. Just as long as they have availability to it, that's what we're looking for. The minute that we hear, oh no, you can't touch that, stop. Leave that alone. That's only for teachers. That's where that red flag goes up, and I'm like, uh-oh. I'm gonna have to mark them down at a 5.1. So that means they're gonna get less than a 4. Uh-oh. So that's what I kind of want to say, no, let them
Just for today.
Just for today. And that musical instruments are available for at least half of the class. So that means if you have 10 children in your class, you want to have at least 5 musical instruments available for them to use. And that you have a variety of music available for them to hear. Classical, Western, nature, children's songs, music, because that's one of the other things. If I'm not seeing any CDs out, like the way that we try to teach it is have your CD player down low so that they can play it, but then have some CDs out there for them to use. If I'm seeing a CD player that's down low, but I'm not seeing any CDs, that's one of those questions I can ask you. What kind of music do you use in your classroom? And that's where you're gonna say, oh, we have classical, Western, children's songs, nature music. So you're gonna give me all, and I just need 3 examples. So now we're moving to blocks. Blocks is fun. Blocks is probably a very popular center in your classroom. And this is where it gets a little tricky too, because in blocks, we want blocks to be accessible. We want blocks to have enough room for at least 3 children to play in and have enough blocks for 3 children to be able to use. So that's a pretty big size because we know children like to play. There has to be 2 different kinds of blocks. So let's say you have wooden blocks and then you have another kind, like maybe you have homemade wooden blocks. Maybe one of your parents cut down a tree and he cut them into little pieces and children can use those to build blocks with. Or maybe you ask parents to bring in cereal boxes or tissue boxes or food boxes, and then you covered them with paper and then the children painted them. Those are homemade boxes. So you can be very creative with your blocks, but you want to have 3 different kinds of blocks. And you want to have 3 different kinds of accessories. So your accessories include people, and you want to have them in a little container, preferably labeled and pictured. Animals in their own container, labeled and pictured, if possible. And then cars in their own container, labeled and pictured. That is all that we want to see in blocks. The minute that we start adding train tracks, whistle blocks. Oh, I got these cool little blocks that the children like to use with the blocks. Those are considered manipulatives. Train tracks, they interlink. So we're looking for blocks in the block centers that do not interlink. Anything that they can build and stack with. So if we find those materials, that's where our scores start going down a little bit. I know it's hard.
What does that add to?
No, because according to the ECERS book, once you start adding those toys to your block play, it interrupts the flow of their block play because you're adding another manipulative in there. So we're looking for them just to be able to build with blocks and use those accessories. I know it's hard because as a teacher, my train track was in my block area, and even to this day, I walk into classrooms and I see that, and that looks so natural and normal because that's what I've done and that's what I believe in. Having to tell teachers that's considered a manipulative, it's interlocking, it interferes with your block play. That's one of the hardest things to have to tell teachers. Well, where do I put it? Where does it go? So then we have to kind of be creative and think of other places to put it than the block area.
Well, that's kind of ridiculous because like right now we have our block play on one side of the room and we have our trains on the other side of the room. And we have, I mean, what comes to mind right away is this set of boys. They're taking the trains, they're building a block structure, they're putting the train tracks, they ask for marbles, and then they're sliding the marbles down or sliding the cars down the tracks or making boxes. They say they have a whole game going, and I'm not going to stifle that play.
I agree 100% with you. I agree 100% with you. Think about it. You're storing them in another place. They're in another area of the classroom. The children are bringing those toys over and intermixing them.
We have a couple questions online. Well, this was supposed to be in view only mode, but there's a manageable number of participants. So I'm going to try to kind of filter these through as I can. One question was, are Legos considered blocks?
Yes, because they're interlinking.
Okay, they're interlinking.
They're manipulative. Sorry, they're a
So
small
they're
building
not-
material. They're a small building material.
So it's yes, a block, or no?
No.
No, not. No, not. Okay, so they're not blocks. And then someone asked, I thought tree blocks were not allowed in blocks, that they were only manipulatives.
If they're big enough to be considered blocks, then yes. If they're 2 inches or above, those are considered blocks for the block area.
All right, thank you.
Good questions. This is one of those controversial areas, and as assessors, Heidi and myself, it's something that we learned last year about block area, and it has been very challenging to work with teachers because there are so many things we can do with blocks, and there's so many things that we can add to blocks. Like we have construction things. We would encourage in the past to have hats and vests and tools and add them to our blocks, but those are considered different types of toys that are interfering with block play.
You're not marked down though. Or yes, you are marked down.
Yes, it's at the 5.3 level. If those toys start intermixing, that's where we're marked down. And once you mark down at the 5 level, it automatically will go to a 4. Sometimes these are easy things to fix too. Sometimes it's just adding something or taking something away. And then we would work with you. Where else can we play with those things? Could we take the train tracks outside? We can take trains outside. I know. It's tough.
Or it could be that you leave your trains and you leave your vests and your hats, and you leave all that in your block area in your classroom, and maybe then you just have another set of blocks outside, but that's where you can get credit for that block play outside.
Yeah.
So I mean, you just kind of have to be creative, or it could be that you just decide, you know, I'm gonna take a ding in that area because I'm not willing to make that change because I see what happens. And we get it. We've been teachers, we get it. So it's just, you kind of just have to decide where you're gonna make decisions around school.
And block play can be outside too. Once you start getting into the 7 level, remember where you're going over and beyond, having blocks outside kind of helps you get that higher score. So it can kind of help you get a 6 or a 7. So here we're looking at the block area. What's happening in the block area? So I'm in the block area and I go and I do an observation and I'm finding these toys. What's happening?
No blocks.
No, they're not linking.
Yeah, they're building block. They're small building materials. Yeah, and small building materials. Once we have them in the block area, So as a mentor, and if I'm working with you, probably where's another spot we can put these things? Because yeah, they're fun, and we want small building materials because we get them for fine motor. Where's another spot we can put that? Is there another table maybe we can make a center around a table so that maybe they can do them on the table or something similar to that? So sand and water, our friends, sand and water. So sand and water, to get to the higher levels, we want to provide sand and water inside and sand and water outside. If you have, I'll give you an example of something because sometimes it's like, oh man, you can still get a 5 if you have sand inside and sand outside. You can still get a 6 if you have sand inside or some type of sensory thing inside, but then outside you have sand and water. So there's a little bit of, you can still move around a little bit. Just want to make sure that we're providing the necessary toys. So we want materials in our sand and water. Remember, materials that they're able to scoop up and dump, and we want different kinds of measuring cups, different kinds of spoons, funnels, sifters. We want toys in there. We want to hear that you have a variety of things in there in your sensory and sand inside and outside. So that's something as you're participating, maybe that's your need. Maybe we need a sand thing inside. We need a sensory table inside. That's something with QRS. probably the majority of you are working with QRIS. That's something that part of your allocation could purchase for you, is those things. If that's a need that you're really needing, that's something that you may purchase with your allocation dollars.
When you say variety, you don't have that 3-5 number going on there? Yeah, is there like an?
At least, so I'll tell you, at least 2 different kinds of measuring instruments. So if I'm looking at a sand table inside, I'm looking, do they have different size bowls, different size spoons? That's a variety. Do they have like a different kinds of animals in there? 2, 3. So that's my variety. Does that kind of help a little bit?
And the sand and water is supposed to be available every day?
Yes, but like let's say, okay, today my lead assistant is sick, so we're just not going to do water play today. I'm going to put the lid on it today. Okay, if I come in and I see, oh, they have the sand table, but the lid's on it, I'm still going to give you credit because you have a provision for it. So like, let's say your sand and your water table's closed today. Not closed, but you have it covered today. You still get credit because you have it. If children wanted to use it, my thought would be that they would go up and say, can I use the sand and water table today, Miss Jula? And what would Miss Jula say?
Today, yes. Let's see if we can help you figure out. Or no, chicos.
Oh, I don't want to hear no.
Please, no.
Then
no.
I'll be right there.
Yes, let me open it for you. Let's have fun.
So if you have it and it's covered, I might walk over there and I might look, because I'm looking for your accessories, right? At this point, I'm looking to see if you have shovels and spoons. I'm opening it. Oh, they have it. Oh, thank goodness they have it. They get credit for it. If I walk over to your water table and it has blankets and yesterday's art stuff and books, that's telling me, uh-oh, that's not accessible.
It only has to be accessible that other hour and a half type thing or whatever. So, because we do use ours for putting our blankets and stuff on for a short period of time.
You're
So
yep.
are we
You're
am I
good.
understanding?
You're understanding it
Okay.
correctly, because if you're an 8-hour program, it's an hour. If you're a 4-hour program or less, it's a half hour.
So you're going to question that at least, right? If you
I'm
see
hoping
it,
that
or
I'm hoping that when I come in,
Uh-huh.
you have it open for me to see.
But what if you're there for the whole
I'm
5
not.
hours?
I'm there for 3 hours or less.
And since we know you're coming, we
Right.
can make sure it's
Right.
seeable.
Or I'm looking on your schedule. Okay, I'm looking on your schedule. Oh, and the afternoon, they said they're going to do water play this afternoon. And I see that they have a table over here. So yes, they do it.
So I thought you would just have it accessible during the free play time. So it's supposed to be accessible. So then we have to write water play also?
Anywhere.
So, okay, I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand.
No, go ahead.
So if we redo the schedule and put that free play in there so that when you guys come, I would assume by free play, that for you guys would mean everything's available, including that sand table.
For how many hours is your program?
Well, it depends. I'm there for 5 hours, so I'm guessing an hour and 40 minutes.
So this one just has to be accessible.
I saw that that's less.
Yeah.
On that.
It's a little bit less.
Okay, but I would assume at this point what we're doing is it's available during that free play time. That's substantial.
If you want to do it that way, you can.
Okay.
Yes. And then you're also getting credit outside too, so we're looking outside also.
But does it have to say on that schedule, water and sand?
No,
Okay.
because those are your centers. Yes.
So is this like the same thing as a sensory table? Like would it still qualify as the same thing?
Yes.
So say our theme is something, and so they change it out, and so they do like beads in there, and then the majority of it is beads instead of sand or water. But they can still like measure them and pour them. Does that count even though it's not sand or water?
Yes. The only thing that does not count are your natural materials like leaves. acorns. Those things do not count.
The reason for that is because it's more difficult. You can't pour and you can't scoop, and
So it has to be
it
something
has to
like
be things that
weeds
you
or
can see. weeds,
Yes.
Yeah. Things
Yes.
that you can pour and scoop.
Okay, as long as they can pour
Pour
and
and
scoop
measure
it.
it.
So think when I'm putting something out, I'm gonna put lots of cotton ball in there.
Yeah, we don't have cotton balls.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking like big clumps. Can they put that, can they go fit into a container and dump? So just kind of, can they do that? And then if you have any question about it, always look in your book too. And sometimes even wood chips, like if you're outside, you can use wood chips. If you have wood chips, you can put them in your sensory table. Those are scooping and dumping things. Yes.
So I thought we had to have water and sand both at the same time in the classroom. And if we don't have one sensory table and we're doing it according to the theme, does that count for both?
One.
One.
It would count for one. And then you'd want to have a separate container for like water.
Okay.
Does somebody have a question?
It was answered, so thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about that? I know this, it gets a little tricky and there's lots of questions, and if you go back and you talk and you need to reach out, please feel free to reach out to Jula.
Yes.
Or your
I'm waiting.
You're hearing us, right?
Yeah, that's right. Taking notes.
We do have one more question. Can water be in tubs as, it says, can water be in tubs as wanted versus in a sensory tub?
Any topic, like a little water can?
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm understanding that question either.
Like you can have individual water pans.
On the table.
Yes, she says yes. Okay.
Yes. And that would be considered water play.
Yeah.
Thank you. So dramatic play area. Fun, 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 fun. Now this is another tricky one, so there might be a lot of questions with this one too. So for your dramatic play materials, they need to be accessible for your substantial portion of the day. So this is one of those areas that we're really looking for it to be open during your free play time, and this is what we're calculating. I'm taking notes. Okay, from 9 to 9:45, they had free play and their dramatic play area was open. From 10:15 to 11, they had free play. They had it outside. So I'm writing, I'm calculating all the time to make sure that you're meeting substantial portion of the day. In your dramatic play area, you need to have two themes. Housekeeping is a theme, cooking, cleaning, babies, dress up, those are housekeeping. And then you need another kind of theme. You can have it in your playhouse, you can have it in another area in your classroom, or you can also have it outside. Your area needs to be defined. So that means I'm looking to see outside, I'm looking to see, do they have a designated play area? Do they have enough props? Because I'm looking for at least 3 kinds of props. If you're telling me you're doing firefighting outside, I'm looking for outfit, hose, boots. I'm looking for 3 different kinds of things. That's going to give me a theme. And that your materials are rotated and that you offer a variety of things. So that's a question I'm going to ask you. Tell me about your dramatic play. How often do you rotate your areas? What are different kinds of themes that you have? So that's going to help me give you a higher score. And that you offer pictures, stories, and trips used to enrich dramatic play. So if you're doing a coffee shop, maybe you have a sign that says, Buckeye Coffee Shop, and then you have a menu, and then you have pictures of coffee or people drinking coffee. Or you have, maybe they drew a picture and that teacher wrote down the child's words like, yesterday, Mom and I went to the coffee shop and I got chocolate milk, and you're putting it up there. Or you have somebody come and visit, maybe Mom works at Starbucks and comes visits and tells the class about what it's like to work at Starbucks. So those things, those are those over and beyond things that's going to help you get a higher score. So also in your dramatic play, another area is that you're representing culture. So you're providing culture within your dramatic play area. And you need to have at least 3 different kinds of props, and there needs to be at least 2 kinds of examples. So this is one example. So I have some dramatic play clothes, I have some food, and then maybe I have some pots. This is where you get to be creative. You can have pictures of a Japanese girl, and then maybe you have some clay dishes with some clay chopsticks. Maybe you have clay sushi. That's a culture that's being represented within the dramatic play area. So that's one example. So then I'm looking for another one. How you choose to do that is how you want to. Some people put cookbooks, pictures, clothing, dishes, all kinds of different things, maybe a baby. So you get to be creative and figure out what you want, what you need, and how you're going to put it in there to represent different cultures. So dramatic play outside, this is another one of those things over and beyond, offering it outside, different kinds of things. So here we have like a little shop, and then, yeah, that one I don't know, I can't really see very well, but it's something outside. And then we've got, like in the sandbox, something happened in the sandbox with dramatic play stuff, construction stuff. So that's like another theme outside. Does anybody have any questions? You feel okay? Not overwhelming you? It's all good because it's like, this is going to let you go back to your classroom and get energized. And remember, take it one bite at a time. As a staff, what's one thing you want to concentrate and work together and do it, and then pick another thing. You don't have to do this all at once. It's a process. You know, just to kind of give you that information so as you go back into your classroom, we love science. We're going to work on our science area. Work on it, then move on to the other one. And contact Jula if you have any questions.
Yes, contact Jula.
So what's your cell phone?
You know it already.
So this is dress up clothing. Because another thing that we want to see is dress up clothing in your area. This is one of these that can break you right away. If you do not have the necessary clothing, we check a note, and then it's automatically a 4. If we're not meeting substantial portion of the day, it's no more than a 4.
Where does it go? Does that go in the dramatic play, or can it go in the kitchen, or anywhere?
Anywhere for dramatic play, yes. If you're doing it outside, remember we're just looking for 3 props. If you're doing housekeeping, like generally housekeeping's inside the classroom with the stove and the refrigerator, that's where your clothing's gonna be. So this is where I'm looking for your clothing. So any type of clothing, pants, shirt, jacket, top, that's one example. So I'm wanting to see 3 kinds of gender specific things for boys and for girls. So that means at least 3 things, or 3 things from each. So a total of 6. Okay, so we have clothing, that's one example. I'm wanting to see maybe jewelry for girls, shoes for girls, a purse for a girl, skirt, sunglasses, yes.
Does it have to be 3 of each size?
Yeah, just until it's going to fit the majority of the children.
Okay.
Yeah. Some people bring in shoes from home that their husband or their son isn't using anymore. Some people say, I don't have any boy clothes. Well, do you have a boy at home? Or even one of their old shirts. That counts. So I'm looking for 3 things. So for girl, we're looking for dresses, shoes, a necklace. That's 3 things. For boy, maybe a shirt, some boots that kind of look like boy boots, and then maybe a wallet or a tie.
So we need to keep the theme outside with what we have as well with the echo stuff.
Okay.
So,
For clothing though, I'm looking for clothing for them to dress up and play in.
right. But I mean, would it need to match what you're inside?
If you, yes.
Like we use hats, like cowboy hats and like sunbonnets for a girl. I mean,
Sure, but you always take the risk of our lovely little friends that like to visit and like to share and go home with each other. So
A cowboy hat would actually be considered gender neutral because girls or boys could wear
Yeah.
them. So that's why you have to be really specific.
unless it's pretty specific, sometimes there's pretty specific ones.
So could you just repeat that?
It can be gender specific.
So can we repeat that for, Julie didn't hear it, I don't know.
Gender specific, if the cowboy hat looks like it could go for a girl or a boy, it would be considered gender neutral rather than male or female.
Okay.
I mean, I would just always play it safe. You know, really think of the clothing, the wallet, the pants, and the shoes. That's pretty.
we already have cowboy hats, so I was trying to like not
Yeah.
have to do anything else for our rodeo week.
Yes.
So I do a dramatic play area in my room, and we have a kitchen. And I have some of this stuff in my dramatic play area. But does it count still?
What, are they separated?
Yes,
They're completely separated.
I do it according to the theme of the month and that one corner.
So we're just looking, so if you have a dramatic play area, so we're just looking for the clothing in the dramatic play area, and then we're,
Or it could be.
Mhm.
And it would-
Mhm. So here, I'm going into the dramatic play area, and this is what I find. I find a girl's little pantsuit, a jacket, and a dress. So what am I noticing, or what else could I add to this category? A purse, jewelry, shoes. Yeah, because this is showing me one example. And how many do I need? 3. Ooh, you guys are good. All right. So what else could you add? Jewelry, shoes, purse. That's
Good stuff.
so many possibilities. And then once you hear a wallet, a man's wallet, oh, I got one of those at home. My brother has one, I'll just take it. So different themes. So we talk about themes a lot. And remember, themes can be, you have your housekeeping, you could have another theme in another part of your room. You could have it outside, but there's looking for 3. We're looking for 2 themes, and we're looking for at least 3 props from your theme. So you could have housekeeping, office, restaurant, store, construction, medical, farming, fantasy. There's so many. It's an endless possibility of themes. But how many props do you need for your theme?
6. I'm sorry, just having during that 6. I'm thinking gender. I'm already thinking 12. Wait, 6 out there and 6 here.
You need at least 3 things. So if you say, oh, we're have a planting theme outside. So I want to see 3 things that shows me a planting theme outside.
I think too, this area is one of the most confusing.
It is.
Yeah, it is for a lot of teachers.
It is. And it's hard because this is my housekeeping area. How am I going to put a store here too? You know, got to be creative.
We saw a coffee shop. It was
Coffee shop.
awesome.
Yeah, we saw a coffee shop in the dramatic play area with housekeeping, and it worked. You make it work. You work with your environment, and you work with what you have, and yet you explain. And as long as I can go into your dramatic play area and there's housekeeping there, but then you have a sign that says there's a store, and you have a cash register with some play food and some bags, they've got another theme right there.
Your second theme could be outside as well, doesn't have to be inside, as long as you provide 3 props to make the theme.
Yes.
So I think you answered this, but I just want to be clear for the person that asked the question. Can both themes be in the same area, or does it have to be in 2 areas?
They
Same.
can be in the same
Just
area.
as long as it's marked?
Right.
Okay.
And as
Thank
long
you.
as I can, as long as I have 3 things that I'm looking for 3 things that represent that theme.
Okay, great. And then we have one more chat. So let me, actually it's popping up as the same one, never mind.
So remember, if you have questions, you can always look in your book too. So nature and science. Oh. Nature and science. This is where, I've got something in my eye, I apologize. We encourage children to bring in natural things to share and to add to their natural objects, such as you may say, somebody comes in with a bucket full of shells. Oh, those are natural things. We're gonna put those in our science area. And then somebody comes in with a basket full of leaves. Oh, those are natural things. We're gonna put those in our science area. So children are helping to contribute to the science area. You may go on a walk outside, and you may tell children, we're gonna go on a nature walk, and we're gonna look for things outside. And children may find little rocks or little pieces of bark. You can add those to your science area. Materials need to be available for a substantial portion of the day. So again, we're looking to see that they're available during free play. Your materials are organized and in good condition. So when I go to your science area, if I'm just finding things all over the place, there isn't any order to anything, that's gonna raise a little red flag for me and just say, uh-oh. You know, maybe it's just gonna take putting some things in some baskets. Or if I'm noticing that, yeah, maybe they've had some substitutes the last couple days and this area wasn't kind of looked at, I can kind of see there's a little bit of a basket over here for this and a little bit of basket for that. That might be just something we would talk to you about. But we're kind of wanting to see organization. And that staff are talking about events as a basis of nature, learning, and science so that there's conversation happening within the day. Your conversation can consist of, what's the weather like today? What's happening outside? Oh, did you hear that? What is that? It's a bird. What's that rolling on the ground? That's science talk. So my day when I'm doing an observation, I hear that, oh, they're doing science talk. I'm jotting that down because that's going to give you a higher score. And there's 4 categories in science. In order to get credit, you need 3 categories covered. And I'm gonna go over those categories with you now. So the first one is natural objects. These are those things that your children can bring into you, that you can put in your science area, that you're gonna wanna have in separate containers. So if they bring in leaves, shells, rocks, different kinds of wood, pine cones, bird nests, you can put them out. You need 3 examples, and they need to be in their separate containers. Not just an example, but they're different natural objects in their own containers. That's something that I would want to see in your science area. Living things. So 3 different kinds of living things. So these are some examples. Plants, you can have a garden outside, a class pet like a fish, window bird feeders, aquarium with fish or other animals, an ant farm, worm farm, a butterfly hatching kit. So I just need 3 kinds of things. Science, games, and toys. I need 3 examples of these. So books with realistic animal pictures. Games such as nature theme, matching, nature cards, nature sequence cards. Toys such as realistic animals, just your normal play animals, those are realistic. You can get credit for those. Any kind of puzzles with real animal pictures on them. And then magnifying glasses, those are considered a toy. So I just need 3 things. So if I found a book and a puzzle and some animals, that's 3 things. So you would get credit for that category. Activities is where it gets a little trickier because activities we're wanting to see like a magnet wand and magnets. Like if you have a basket with a magnet wand and magnets, that's an activity. There's materials there for them to be able to use. If you have a scale, and then you have a little basket of wood chips for them to weigh next to the scale, that's an activity. If you have different colored water, because you're talking about the color green, and they're mixing blue and yellow, and you have water, and you have little those dauber things for them to be able to squeeze and mix colors, that's an activity. If you were to just have the microscope out or magnifying glasses out on the shelf, that's not an activity, that's a toy. So you want something with that toy that's going to make it an activity, and there's a purpose behind it. So when you're putting something out, you want to make sure that there's a purpose for them to be able to use the materials. And some examples of activities are magnets with objects to experiment with, magnifying glasses with something for them to look at, a sink and float activity, shaking plans with substances to match and compare, and smelling and matching cans with different smells. So they're smelling something, and then they're matching that smell to a picture.
Quick question, Leslie.
Uh-huh.
Someone asked, can living things be throughout the classroom, or is that only in the science center?
Those can be throughout the classroom.
Thank you.
And then here's an example of an activity. There's something in the tube, and then they're looking at the pictures, and they're kind of matching. Your All About book has lots of examples too. And these are some additional ideas for activities, such as your magnets. There's the wands and the magnets there, all put in a little container for them to be able to use and to experiment with. There's some x-rays with pictures of the objects so that they can match those x-rays to their objects. Down here, it looks like they're using a magnifying glass and they're looking at like plants. And then over here, it's just pictures with some dirt to represent land and some pictures and to represent water so that they're matching. So that would be considered an activity, and you would just need 3 of those. So there's 4 categories. There's living things, natural objects, your books, toys, and then activities. Remember, you only need 3 of those categories to get credit. So like maybe you have a policy where we cannot have any pets. You know, and I'm really stuck because I don't want pets in my room. You just need the other 3 and you would still get credit. So what can you add to make this an activity? So we have some goggles. So what's something you might be able to add there? Maybe just add a little experiment. Maybe they're mixing colors and you're just wanting them to be scientists.
Or you can get those palettes that come in different colors, and you put one on top of the other one and make another one.
Yeah. Just trying to be scientists, making it fun for them. Because the best part about it is putting on the goggles and using them. So math and numbers. Math and numbers is the category, can be anywhere in your room. You can have it in your art area, you can have it in your puzzles, you can have it in your books. It can be anywhere. It has to be available for a substantial portion of the day, or it has to be available for a substantial portion of the day. It has to have a variety of materials. Here again, they have to be well organized. We're listening for number talk. So if you're lining up and you're counting the children in line, okay, let's count how many children we have in line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many friends are in line? 5. I'm listening for that. I'm taking notes. So any kind of number talk that's happening. My ears are perking up and I'm saying, oh good, they did it. And your materials are rotated. In math, there are 5 categories, and all 5 categories need to be represented. And this is where you're like, what? All 5 of them? But this is where you have them everywhere. And this is where you can use them everywhere. So counting. Counting is a category, and there's 3 to 5 examples that I'm looking for. If you have just teddy bear manipulatives, anything for them to pick up and count, that's a counting toy. If you have a coffee shop and you have a cash register, I'm looking to see, is there money in there? That's considered accounting, so that's 2. If you have pegboards for them to put pegs in, or they're counting, that's another example. Toys, puzzles, and games where quantities of objects are matched to written numbers, like your puzzle. There's 1 car and they're matching the number 1 with the 1 car, or the 2 with the 2 kitty cats. That's a counting thing. Beads and patterns, pegs to fill up different numbers of peg holes. Those are all counting activities. So measuring can be everywhere. So if I'm in your sand area and I'm looking, oh, do they have measuring cups, measuring spoons? Oh, that's 2. They've got 2 measuring things. I'm looking, maybe they're creative and they put a ruler, which can be a tool, in their art area. Oh, there's another measuring thing. That's 3. That's 3 measuring things. So that's how that works. So be creative. Put your measuring things out. If you have a height chart, oh, that's a measuring tool because children can measure how tall they are. So these are just some examples of different things. Comparing quantities. So toys to figure out more or less, like a scale. The little linking cubes. Those little cubes, they can figure out more or less. Nesting cups, any kind of thing that they can put. Dominoes, any kind of chart. Like let's say yesterday you did a math activity where you were seeing who likes the color blue or who likes the color red. So you have the children write their name on the chart, and then at the bottom you put 7 children like the color red and 10 children like the other color. So here you're measuring quantity. Who liked the red color the most, or how many, or you're measuring something there. But on your chart, you're putting the number. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. Dominoes, playing cards, and abacus. So I'm looking for 3 things, and they can be anywhere in your classroom. Sometimes I find a lot of the nesting cups in dramatic play. Recognizing shapes. I'm looking at your puzzles for knob puzzles, and I found a knob puzzle, but it's a shape. There we go. Here we got your unit blocks. If you have in your block area, you have a unit block, you have a shelf for your blocks, but you also have a shape of a rectangle that shows the children that they match. Oh, that's a shape. Magnet shapes, books, your stencils in your art area. If they're shapes for them to be able to use, that's a shape. Written numbers. We can find them on magnet numbers, the play phone and dramatic play, your dramatic play cash register. The only thing about math is if I use the cash register for money, I'm not able to use it for numbers. So that's where you kind of have to think, I gotta have another number somewhere else. So in math, I can't use the items twice. I can only use them once. Your clocks, if you have a clock in dramatic play. Calendar, if you're using a calendar in your classroom. Playing cards, lacing cards, books, posters, puzzles, everywhere. That is math and numbers. And how many of you use computers? Computers, smartboards. So here we're just looking that if you're using these things, children have an option to go somewhere else. They don't all have to sit there and use it. That the materials are safe, they're interactive, and teachers are participating with them. The teachers are there interacting with them. So that's a big piece when you're using these. And a lot of these we don't see, and we may not see them when you're in your classroom, but we're asking you, do you use these? And if you say yes, then we're asking you these questions. What does it look like? Tell me a little bit more about it so that I can understand it better. And then based off of your question, based off of the questions that I ask you and the answers that you give me, that's how I am Promoting acceptance of diversity. So we also want to see diversity in your classroom. And diversity consists of races, like your ethnicity. It consists of culture, your traditions, ages. So very young, newborn babies to the elderly. So we want to see this range of things in your classroom. Young babies, and we want to see elderly represented. Abilities. People in wheelchairs, people with glasses. If you have sign language posters up in your room. And gender. Gender is that a girl firefighter, a male teacher, so kind of the role reversal of what we would expect. And these are some examples of different things. So here we have a picture of an elderly couple and the young baby. The firefighter, she's a female firefighter. If these were pictures in your classroom. Here, some people for your block area. They're representing a race. The dancers, they're representing a culture. And then here, another pictures. Those are also your ability pictures. Maybe those are your books that you have. So promoting diversity is found in your books, it's found in your pictures, and it's also found in materials accessible. So when I'm coming in, I'm looking at your book area. I'm seeing, do they have books with different races, different cultures, abilities? Do they have books with ages and gender? So I'm tallying all these are in tally. I'm looking at your pictures throughout your room and I'm tallying, do they have culture and race, pictures that are showing race, abilities? I'm looking for these things. And the same thing with the materials that you have in your classroom, like your food in your dramatic play area. I'm looking at your puppets. I'm looking at your play people. I'm looking at your musical instruments. So those are how we represent those different categories. And here we just have pictures of puppets. This would be a gender, the male teacher. And then here's just different culture, different race. So I'm going into a classroom and I'm looking, we're talking about promoting diversity, and I'm looking at your materials, and these are the kinds of materials that I'm finding. What are these materials telling me? That are they representing diversity? They're not really representing diversity. So how could you change this up a little bit? What could you do? Have a baby of a different race. Have a baby of a different race. The same with the dollhouse people. Yeah, same with the dollhouse people. Just kind of think about the materials that you're putting out, and then think about how is that going to represent diversity? And this is where your cards are really going to help you. Because as you're rotating your materials every month, you're still wanting to make sure that you're capturing all those categories. You're wanting to make sure that you're representing, like when we talk about books, you're representing your different categories of books. These are going to be so helpful to you. And I had wanted to laminate these for you, and I had worked so hard, but our laminator broke. So I cut them out for you.
Thanks, Lee. Just want to do a little time check-in with you, about 10 more minutes, and then we'll go to the rest.
Okay. So pictures and books. I'll go through these really quickly. Pictures and books. We want to have a variety. They need to be accessible. That means children need to be able to use them for a substantial portion of the day. We want to see a planned group activity, and we also want to see it done informally, so like a small group's coming together and a teacher's reading the book. So we have 20 books for 15 children and one more for every child. So if you have 20 children, you want to at least have 25 books. And books can be everywhere. So think about it that way too. You can have books in dramatic play area. And that they're rotated, and that at least 3 match your theme. So I'm looking on your lesson plan. What's your theme for the month? If it's spring, so I'm looking for spring books. And those are over and beyond 6s and higher scores. So your categories of books, I want to find at least 3 of these books. In each of these categories, I want to find at least 3. I want to find fantasy, nature and science books, race and culture books, factual books, people, ability books, animals with real pictures. Ability books, people with glasses, so that counts as an ability book. So I'm just looking for 3 books that show me abilities, 3 books that are fantasy, and so on and so on. So what are considered violent books? These wonderful classics are considered violent books because they show fear, they show violence. Any book that shows a character that's scared, anything that shows anger, that is considered a violent book according to this tool. How you choose to use these books in your room is your choice. But if somebody's coming in and doing an assessment and we see these books at the 5.4 level, it's going to be a no, and it's going to be a 4 or below. So just keep that in mind. I'm not telling you that you can't have these books in your classroom because we all do the Gingerbread Man during the holiday time. We all do the 3 Little Pigs. It's how you choose to explain it to children. And if a child's scared, what is something that you would say to make him feel better? It's a tough one. And I know it's a hard pill to swallow because we use these books. I mean, I was a teacher and I did the 3 Billy Goats Gruff all the time in my block area with puppets.
I love the Grouchy Ladybug.
I know. I mean, I love the 3 Little Pigs, and I did. I know there was an old lady who swallowed a fly. My children loved it. You know. But it's how you choose to let children know. One of the books, we're going on a bear hunt. That's considered a violent book. We live out in the country. We have bears. That's part of our culture. We hunt. How would you choose to present, how would you choose to explain that to children? We do that. That's part of what we do. That's why I'm saying, I'm not telling you to not have those books. When you have somebody that's coming to do it, just take an extra step to look to see what books you have out. That's my kind word for you for today. So your quiet and active areas, your quiet areas are your science, art, manipulatives. Your busy areas are dramatic play. Your busy areas are blocks. If your quiet and your active areas are right next to each other, there's going to be a problem. So kind of think about how your room's set up. I'm sure you have a mentor that's worked with you or is working with you that's helping you to identify that. In the picture, what are you noticing? Right next to their book area.
Oh, yeah.
Too close.
That's right.
Looks like a living room. Could be their living room.
Very cute.
Extension of
It's a problem.
And there are blocks there too.
Yeah.
In the corner.
So communication, we want you to talk. This is where we're looking, there needs to be talking happening. You need to be involved with the children, talking to them. How are you playing? What are things that you're doing? We want materials that encourage communication. Those are like your puppets to play people in your blocks. Those are communication activities. We want staff linking spoken language to written words. So if they drew a picture and they said, it's my mom that you're writing, it's my mom, hi Bobby. And you're putting it up on the wall. And we want to see that on your wall. So language should develop reasoning skills. These are where you're referencing shape, color, size. This is where they're playing with something and they're counting. This is where you're asking a question. Well, why do you think that big block, why do you think that little block keeps making all the big blocks falling down in your structure? So you're having them start talking to you. You're having them start thinking, and then for them to be able to explain what's happening. Your big book is your best friend. It's got everything in there for you. And these are hard. These take time. These take time to build upon. Remember, this isn't something that we want you to go out and we want you to have it done by tomorrow. It's a process. It's a little bit at a time. Informal language. These are where you're asking questions. You're asking those open-ended questions. Like, tell me what you're doing. And you're asking those closed-ended questions where you're just getting a yes or no answer. You're having communication with them. You're asking those what, where questions, those why and those how questions. Hand washing. We all know about our lovely friend hand washing. Hand washing is a process, and hand washing is very tough because there are so many steps to hand washing, and it's a process, and we're watching it, and it has to be at 75% or above, and that's very hard to do. And that you're having the kids wash their hands, you're perfect. So I'm just gonna say that. I think I've only been in one classroom out of my 3 years as working as a mentor that's gotten above a 5. It's very difficult because they have to pump, rub for 20 seconds. A child rubbing for 20 seconds is a long time, and you've got a line back there, and you're watching that line to make sure that the teacher's doing something with those kids to keep them interested. And they're washing, they're rinsing, they're getting their paper towel, they're drying, they're turning the faucet off with their paper towel, and they're throwing it away. You see why that's so difficult? Oh, it's hard. It's hard. Yes.
My package stops with informal language.
What's that?
My package stops with informal language.
Oh, do you need another packet?
Yeah.
Julie, could you get him a packet?
Here, you can take mine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's hard that you're getting the children to wash their hands. You're doing it. So be easy on yourself. Sanitation. Sanitation is another tough one because it's a process. It's a solution. I'm going through this really quickly. It's a soap and water solution that you're putting on the table. You're wiping everything off. Then you're getting your sanitizer, which could be a bleach and water solution. You're cleaning it. You're letting it dry for 2 minutes. So that means you have to back away for 2 minutes when you're already late for lunch and the children are waiting, the teacher is waiting, but you have to wait for 2 minutes for it to dry. The minute that I'm watching the clock and I'm like, please don't go. Please don't go wipe that off. The minute you go and you start wiping it off and you're drying it so that you can set your table, you didn't follow the sanitation procedure that ECERS has put in place for us. Again, it's one of those processes. It takes time. It's a process to work with your staff. Remember, a little bit at a time. But you have the information here, so how you choose to move forward with it, I'll let you do it. So EPA approved. You don't have to use a bleach and water solution. Any solution that you use can be EPA approved. So if you say, oh yeah, I use this stuff that my janitor gave us. So I'll say, can I see the bottle? So you get the bottle out. I'm looking for an EPA number. I'm looking for that number. And then I'm also looking at the directions. The directions say, wait 45 seconds before drawing. So I'm making sure that you're following the directions on your sanitation bottle. Supervision. Supervision is a tough one because this is where we get bathrooms involved. So eyes on at all time in the bathrooms if children are 3 years old. So if you have a child that goes into the bathroom and looks young, is small, I'm making sure that the teacher is watching that child in the bathroom. If you have a 4-year-old child or older, you can be within the vicinity, but you're still really close by, you're listening, you're paying attention, but you're watching. Same thing outside, that teachers are zoning. They're not all in one area and children are freely playing all over, they're behind the building, the teachers are spread out so that you're watching. So this is another tough one because if a child goes into the bathroom and staff's busy because Johnny's over here very upset and you're over here and a child slips into the bathroom and you don't see them, supervision has been lapsed. There's a problem. So that it's tough. It's tough. So it's working with your staff and developing a system. I've seen wonderful systems. Lori's classroom has a wonderful system that they use where they tell each other, and they stay there and they watch. And it's tough if there's 2 of you in the room, but you have to kind of figure out what you're going to do. How to get a good score, because that was one of the things that was really important. You have your materials, you meet a substantial portion of the day, and that you supervise the children. So important.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop us right there, and those of you joining online, we have another group cohort coming in right at 4 o'clock for ECERS. So we'll take maybe a few minutes to do some Q&A if that works for everyone, and then I'm gonna end the meeting online, and we'll have you in the room fill out an evaluation, and we're gonna do a little giveaway. So.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Any questions online? No? Okay. So I'm just gonna make a quick announcement online after I read this one question that just came in. It says, thank you. I just wanna let everyone know online, if you would like to receive a professional development certificate, everyone in the room will also receive one. You can email me at hub@first5shasta.org, and that's HUB@first5shasta.org. I'm going to write it in the chat box for everyone. My email's also on the flyer, on the Eventbrite link, so you can contact me if you'd like a professional development certificate. So with that said, I'm going to end the meeting online, and we'll continue in the room with the evaluations. All right, thanks everyone.
Heidi, can you give me a number between 1 and 13, please?
Shout out to the classmates.
Juliana?
Juliana?
Oh, Jula.
That's me.
I know, I'm undercover.